I'm going to be Hillary Clinton, and I want you to be a debate moderator. And don't ask me questions like these freaking softball people that, like Andrea Mitchell and all these shills that ask her questions. And I'm going to be Hillary Clinton. I'm going to show you what she's going to do. And this will probably reflect the next debate. And ask me anything. Be as tough as you want. I'll be Hillary Clinton.
Secretary Clinton, would you say you had a failed policy in the Middle East?
Absolutely not. What we did is we inherited an absolute mess from Republicans, a terrible mess. The Sunnis were fighting the Shiites, the Mullahs were fighting the Kurds were fighting the Dubba, and I had meetings with every single leader of those coalitions, and I forged coalitions, I forged cooperation, and let me tell you, there was nobody stronger going after bin Laden than me. And I was in that situation room and we took him out. And President Obama asked me, well, what do we do? What do I do, Secretary Clinton? And I said, we go after Osama bin Laden. I solved a lot of problems in the Middle East and I will make no apologies for that. Unlike my rival here, who has no experience whatsoever and does not know what he's doing.
Mrs. Clinton, wouldn't you say that there is a difference between Senator Sanders and you in that he did not vote for the war in the Middle East and you did?
Well, the thing is that look at all the senators that did it, and to tell you the truth, we believed what the president George Bush said. We looked at the information. We didn't know. And you know what? If you want to talk about bad judgment, then why did Obama choose his judgment to make me Secretary of State if he thinks my judgment is that bad? Which it's not.
Okay, your audio died there for a minute, but that's exactly what will happen with Secretary Clinton. They'll be turning the knob. CNN will be turning the knob so that her voice doesn't really come through, so you can't tell what she really said.
Another question, any question, tough as you want.
Okay. Mrs. Clinton, you said that you're not the Wall Street candidate, even though it seems as though you have a large amount of money. I mean, Senator Sanders has had $15 million raised from Wall Street in the last quarter alone. Answer this question for me. Don't you think that the 5 banks who control almost 2/3 of the wealth and assets in the U.S. are too big and they should be broken up?
Listen, when the Republican president George Bush left office, we were losing 800,000 jobs a day. And President Obama came in and he installed Dodd-Frank and he fought for it. And I fought with President Obama to get Dodd-Frank. And Dodd-Frank works. And what we need to do is build on Dodd-Frank. And you know what? If there's no bank that's too big to fail and no executive too big to fail. And you know what? If there's a problem, I'm going to tell them to cut it out. I'm going to tell them to cut it out. And you know what? My plan, unlike my rival here, who's easy on banks in Wall Street, my plan is tougher. I go after shadow banking. I go after all the problems. I'm not focused on one little thing like breaking up the banks. If we need to break up the banks, I'll break them up. But unlike my opponent over here, he is easy on banks. I'm the one who's tough on banks. In fact, many economists say that my plan is tougher. My plan is tougher.
Really? Well, Secretary Clinton, how would you explain the fact that you were paid $675,000 to give speeches to Goldman Sachs, who I might point out has just paid the largest fine in the history for their role in the scandal?
Look, lots of people give speeches. Everybody gives speeches. After I was Secretary of State, that's what everybody does. I didn't think I was going to run for president. Come on, everybody goes out and gives speeches. I gave speeches everywhere. People want to know my opinions, what I do in the world. I can't go a day without somebody asking about how I came up with a plan to kill bin Laden. People are interested in that, and that's what they offered me. There's nothing strange about that. You know what? If you want to come after me about that, you go after everybody else. Unlike my opponent here, who also takes money from Goldman Sachs and gives plenty of speeches. So, don't call the kettle black.
Well,
If you show me one thing where me taking money from anybody has affected my stances and made me vote another way, it never has. And you know what? Let me tell you something else. Let me tell you something about the inner quality of a human being, what somebody stands for. You know where I went a few days ago? I went to Flint, Michigan to talk about poor families and talk about that water crisis. Where did my opponent go? He went to New York to be on Saturday Night Live. Mr. Sanders, I think that is beneath you to do something like that when there is people in Flint, Michigan that are dying, and you go to Saturday Night Live and hang out with a bunch of rich New York, Wall Street celebrities? Come on.
now, Mrs. Clinton, isn't it true that you appeared on Saturday Night Live as well?
And I was in Flint, Michigan last week. I was in Flint, Michigan last week. Flint,
Okay.
Michigan.
Okay, back to Goldman Sachs. So, do you think that the fraud that was perpetrated on the American public is okay, and that it's okay for those individuals to not actually be convicted of any crime, simply pay a fine?
Look, what we need to look at in a candidate is what that candidate's values really are.
Correct.
And what they are. And my values are going to Flint, Michigan when people need me. When people need somebody to stand up for them and to fight for them. I was in Flint, Michigan. Where was my opponent? He was in New York. New York,
Senator
finance
Clinton,
capital of the world on Saturday Night Live. What the American people need and what the American people want is somebody with those kind of values who will go to Flint, Michigan and fight for them.
Secretary Clinton, isn't it true that political power we're simply playing for another photo op, and you really don't care about those people at all? You care more about Washington, and the only existence is inside the Beltway, and the rest of the country can go to hell. Isn't that true?
Look, I care about everybody. I have been fighting for families my entire life, back from when I got out of college and I was working with children. And I was the first people to fight for universal health care. I was fighting for that. I've been fighting my whole life, and you know what? I got the scars to show for it. And you know what? If I wasn't fighting for people, then why are people like Karl Rove and other super PACs spending billions of dollars to try and defeat me? You know why? Because they know I stand up for the American people.